Just when you think that the US government could not sink any lower, it just did. During the wee hours of the morning on August 31st, they tried to execute a plan to deport 600 unaccompanied migrant children between the ages of 7 and 17 to Guatemala, where they could face abuse, neglect, or persecution. The reason why the government decided that they were going to carry out this plan in the wee hours of the morning on a long holiday weekend is because they figured that nobody would be paying attention and that they would get them out of the country before anybody could find out and turn around and say, sorry, we can't get these children back. Fortunately, a lawyer for some of these children went to court immediately, and a judge blocked the deportation of all of the children. Watch this clip to hear more on this story, and I will be back with more commentary.
Late-night court order temporarily halted their deportation. The ruling came after the unaccompanied minors had already been boarded on planes bound for Guatemala. Lawyers filed an emergency motion overnight, prompting the judge to be awakened at 2:30 Sunday morning to intervene, saying, quote, "I have the government attempting to remove unaccompanied minors from the country in the wee hours of the morning on a holiday weekend, which is surprising." For now, a temporary restraining order blocks the deportations of hundreds of such children for at least 2 weeks. We're joined now by Kika Matos, president of the National Immigration Law Center, which is representing some of the migrant children. Welcome back to the program.
Thank you for having me.
So the U.S. has deported unaccompanied migrant children before. So what makes this case in particular stand out?
What makes this case stand out in the most egregious ways is that our government, in the dead of night, ordered the shelters to wake these children up between 2 and 4 o'clock in the morning, to put them on buses so that they could be transported to Texas, the airport, loaded on planes, and deported to Guatemala without making sure that these kids avail themselves of the legal protections and the constitutional rights that they have. Now, understand, none of these kids had received a final deportation order. These are kids whose cases are going through the system. And our government decided that they were going to simply yank away these legal and constitutional protections and send them to Guatemala. The youngest kid that we spoke with is 7 years old. These are all unaccompanied children who are particularly vulnerable. That is what makes this case so outrageous.
And what's the argument that you're presenting on behalf of the children that you're representing?
Our argument is really quite simple, right? It is that the government is engaging in lawless and reckless behavior, and it is stripping these kids of the constitutional protections that they have and the laws that our country has in the books to make sure that these kids have the right to go before a judge and have the right to legal representation.
Some of these children are on the cusp of turning 18, and the Guatemalan government welcomed the return of these children, partly out of concern that once they turn 18, they'd be transferred to ICE detention. And the Guatemalan government says it's ready to receive as many as 150 children a week, arguing that that's better than seeing them transferred to ICE detention here in the U.S. Is that an acceptable resolution in your view?
It is not an acceptable resolution in our view. Let me share what we have learned from the kids that we spoke to, and we have affidavits from. These children, each and every one of these children, did not want to be returned to Guatemala. They feared the possibility that they would be once again threatened with violence. Some of these kids received death threats. Some of these kids have been neglected by their parents. Some of these kids have faced tremendous amounts of trauma and abuse. And our position is really simple. These kids have legal rights and they want to avail themselves of legal rights. The government's position is spurious and, quite frankly, ridiculous. And what I will say is, if these kids did want to return to Guatemala to be reunited with their parents, that is a decision that the judge makes, not the federal government.
What can you tell us about the nearly 2,000 migrant children who are in government custody, HHS custody? A large percentage of them are from Guatemala, is that right?
Yes, my understanding is that many of these kids are from Guatemala. These kids are from Central America. They're from South America. They're from all over the globe. And they're all, what unifies these kids is that they're all uniquely vulnerable, and they all have the rights to protections, legal protections that our government is meant to afford them.
Stephen Miller, the architect of President Trump's hardline immigration approach, blamed the migrants' predicament on the lax immigration policies of the Biden administration. He said these are smuggled minors orphaned in America by the Biden administration that Democrats are refusing to allow back home with their families. What particular concern do you have about the migrant children in federal custody, given the Trump administration's overall approach to immigration enforcement?
Well, let's remember that Stephen Miller is the architect of the family separation plan under the first Trump administration. Right? It's galling to us, and now they're wrapping their defense of what is indefensible by saying they were concerned about these kids and they want to ensure that they're reunited with their families. But what the government was, in essence, doing was yanking away the legal protections that these vulnerable kids have. Right? It should shock the conscience of all Americans that our government, in the dead of night, was targeting vulnerable children and trying to strip them of the protections that they have. And the final thing that I would say is this really exposes the hypocrisy of our government right now, because for the longest time they were saying we're going after the most outrageous criminal immigrants, and that's who we're targeting for deportation, when in fact this weekend shows us that they know no bounds, and their intention was to yank away their rights and send them to a country where they feared for their lives.
Kika Matos, president of the National Immigration Law Center. Thanks again for joining us this evening.
Thank you for having me.
Now watch these clips that I've compiled of American citizens reacting to this heartbreaking story. All credit goes to the content creators.
It's Sunday, August 31st, about 6:15 p.m. West Coast time. A federal judge early this morning, Sunday morning, blocked President Donald Trump's administration from deporting 600 children to Guatemala. Yeah. U.S. District Judge Suknanan in Washington, D.C., temporarily halted the move at 4 a.m. Eastern Time after attorneys for the roughly 600 children said they had not had a chance to contest their deportation. The judge held an emergency hearing at 12:30 p.m. on Sunday to weigh the circumstances. I have the government attempting to remove minor children from the country in the wee hours of the morning on a holiday weekend, which is surprising, but here we are, said the judge during a hearing. They tried to deport 600 children on Sunday of Labor Day weekend. The judge added that she was getting conflicting narratives on the plan. I'm reading from Mediaite. Conflicting narratives on the plan from the Trump administration and attorneys from the children. Trump administration lawyers said the kids who arrived unaccompanied in the United States were part of a, quote, first-of-its-kind pilot program, close quote, to send them back to their home country in cooperation with the Guatemalan government. The kids between the ages of 10 and 17 are supported by the Young Center for Immigrant Children's Rights, which said the Trump administration is attempting to unlawfully deport the children despite ongoing legal proceedings. Judge Suknanan, who was appointed by former President Joe Biden, granted a temporary halt to the deportation for 2 weeks, saying the exigent circumstances of the case warranted maintaining the status quo, meaning keep things as they are until there are further hearings. Deputy Assistant Attorney General Drew Ensign, according to ABC News, said it was possible one flight with some children had taken off for Guatemala before returning to the U.S. Ensign said all the kids were in the custody of the U.S. government and no flights would happen for the time being following the judge's order. Well, it's nice to at least see the Trump administration obeying a court order to not take the plane or not let the planes take off. They have a sketchy history in that regard. The judge's order is the latest move that has thwarted the Trump administration's plan to crack down on people who have entered the U.S. illegally. On Friday, another federal judge blocked the administration's push to swiftly remove non-citizens who were in the states illegally. That order on Friday came when the members of the DOJ for the Trump administration were arguing to a judge that, again, that immigrants are not entitled to due process, and that judge said no. So 600 kids, man.
Picture this. It's the middle of a holiday weekend, the kind of time when most people are unplugged with family, not watching the news, but behind the scenes, the government was loading children, unaccompanied Guatemalan minors, onto planes. 600 of them, kids as young as 6 and 7 years old, ripped out of their beds in the middle of the night and told they are being sent back. But here's what they didn't expect. Lawyers scrambled, raced into courts on a Sunday morning and got a judge to stop it. So the planes were grounded. In one case, kids were actually taken off the plane and returned to custody. The judge made it clear you don't get to bypass law and deport kids without due process. And think about this. They tried to do it on a holiday weekend so the story wouldn't break. Major networks might bury it, but independent creators, people like me and others on this app, are shining the light where they don't want it. 600 children, 600 lives. And without that court order, they'd already be gone. This is why we pay attention. This is why independent voices matter, because when the government tries to sneak something past you, we're here to make sure that the truth gets out. So follow me for more, because this fight is far from over. Was loading children, unaccompanied Guatemalan minors, onto planes.
In case you haven't seen the whole video, I encourage you to check down there and to watch it. But ultimately, while they were trying to load 600 children onto airplanes bound to Guatemala, the courts stepped in and stopped them. But as I watched this video, I couldn't get the visual out of my head. And if you haven't seen Schindler's List, you need to watch it. But there's a scene where they are inspecting all of the adults, not the children, just the adults. And during this inspection, they go out and they round up all of the kids in the camp. And after rounding up the kids, they put them on trucks. And then you get the perspective from the people being inspected, the parents of these children being inspected in the camp, as those trucks full of their kids are driving away, waving. The kids are happy, blissfully unaware of what horrible fate probably awaits them. The movie's silent on it. But the parents panic. They start screaming. They freak out. And this is the vibe on this holiday weekend. What we tried to do. That's the vibe I got while watching this video. And I'm glad attorneys, not like me, but attorneys actually paying attention to things, were there to stop this. And if you support taking children away from their parents, but call yourself pro-life, you need to take a hard look in the mirror.
I don't see anyone talking about how the Trump administration just tried to deport 600 Guatemala children who have pending asylum cases. Yeah, let's talk about that. Here's what we know so far. As of today, August 31st, 2025, while families were grilling, drinking, spending time together, like, the Trump administration was trying to deport these 600 Guatemala children. Please keep this in mind. Some of those kids were already put on planes before anyone even knew what was happening. It took immigrant rights groups filing an emergency lawsuit to stop it. Judge Sparkle Suknanam, I apologize if I mispronounced that, she had to issue a restraining order, literally like forcing the government to bring kids back into custody instead of secretly flying them out. This administration, they called it reunification, but advocates proved many of these kids had pending asylum cases here. That means they weren't reuniting anyone. They were lying. They were just going to take these children there. So please ask yourself this. Why did they do this, first of all, late at night, and second of all, over a holiday weekend? Why did they do this? When they know everyone is not going to be on their phones, when they know everyone's going to be trying to ignore the news because it's too much, it's going to ruin the mood. Yeah, of course it's going to ruin the mood. It's our future. Because they don't want you to know what's happening now. They hoped you wouldn't notice it right now. That's how the cruelty hides. It's in the shadows. It's in the moments of, I just need a break. We don't get a break until this is done, until all of this is done. And if we don't stay loud, they're going to keep doing it. So I'm sorry this popped across your feed, but they're just children. As young as 7 and 6 years old, 600 of them. They're just kids by themselves. They just have these ICE agents escorting them. They're just kids.
You guys, Drew Ensign has to know that he could just quit his job, right? Drew Ensign is an attorney for the DOJ that is constantly the person arguing on behalf of the government for the most heinous things, illegal things that the government is trying to do. I've tried to look him up in the past, and wisely, he's basically has the internet scrubbed. I can't figure out who he actually is, other than he repeatedly shows up in these cases. The latest one is the Trump administration trying to deport hundreds of unaccompanied minors to Guatemala. For the party that allegedly cares so much about children, that is so fucked up. Pardon my language, but good Lord. And apparently, thank God for the courts, right? Because we have all these doomsday people on the left that are like, oh, we're cooked. Oh, it's over. Oh, what's the point? The point is that when folks do fight back, it works. Remember how they said Abrego Garcia would never come back? And surprise, surprise, here he is. So now they are like moving fast. A complaint got filed at like 1 a.m. A judge was assigned by 2 a.m. An ex parte was scheduled for sometime this afternoon, but then the judge got word that the Trump administration was trying to sneak the kids off on a plane in the middle of the night to get around the judge's order. Just like in prior instances of them shipping people off to El Salvador, they try to do it before the hearing happens, even though they're aware of the hearing, so they can escape, try to get around getting in trouble for it. Not so fast, though. The judge found out about it, moved the ex parte hearing up, ordered the government to stop. And guess what? The planes are not leaving now. And anyways, Drew Ensign was in court claiming that these children want to go back to Guatemala. And it's unclear if any of the children do in fact want to go to Guatemala, but the evidence before the court is actually that the children have said they are afraid to go back. I've done a lot of special immigrant juvenile status pro bono immigration work in my time as an attorney. Children are often brought into this country against their will, or it's literally their parents or their family members in whatever country that just will do anything to give their child a better life. And then once the child is here, if you meet certain conditions, they get to stay. And the Trump administration is so desperate to meet their unnecessary, made-up deportation number goals. They're trying to ship off unaccompanied children in the middle of the night. And Drew Ensign is just like, oh, I don't know. That's what the government told me. They wanted to go home. Drew Ensign, if you're hearing this, if you think you're a good person, No, you're not, unless you quit.
So every time you think it can't get any worse when it comes to the issue of immigration, they find a way to make it worse. So look at this. Breaking. A federal judge has blocked the Trump administration from abruptly deporting 600 unaccompanied Guatemalan children, perhaps within a matter of hours, granting an emergency restraining order after advocates call the plan illegal and dangerous. In the dead of night, while most Americans were sleeping, the Trump administration ripped 180-plus kids out of their beds in foster homes and shelters and loaded them into vans headed for deportation flights to Guatemala. It took lawyers around the country working through the night to stop them. So they literally, hundreds, up to 600 orphaned children. The Trump regime tried to round them up in the middle of the night and ship them out of the country before any judge or any lawyers could intervene and stop them. That's what happened. So we're talking about kidnapping and human trafficking children and ruining their lives. I'm at a loss for words, bro. I'm at a loss for words.
As a Canadian, I am truly, truly horrified on the atrocities that are being perpetrated by the U.S. government against migrants and children. Anyone that is still supporting this regime is morally bankrupt and is on the wrong side of history. It is not a difference of opinion. It is a difference of morals and ethics. And they wonder why that their friends and family members that are not aligned with this mega movement don't want anything to do with them, and wonder why people tell them that they're not going to get to heaven. I will leave you with this video because this man sums it up perfectly.
Came across a video, and it's not the first one I've seen, of a woman that was complaining that people are telling her that because she's MAGA and because she wants illegals out of this country, she's not getting into heaven, and it don't make no sense to her. Well, how about we explore that a little bit using your own religious text for reference? Exodus 22:21. Do not mistreat or oppress a foreigner, for you were foreigners in Egypt. Leviticus 19:33 and 34. When a foreigner resides among you in your land, do not mistreat them. The foreigner residing among you must be treated as your native born. Love them as yourself, for you were foreigners in Egypt. I am the Lord your God. And let's even go to the words in red, the words of Jesus Christ. This is from Matthew 25, starts at 31. Jesus' story of the sheep and the goats. When the Son of Man comes in his glory, and all the angels with him, he will sit on his glorious throne. All the nations will be gathered before him, and he will separate the people one from the other, as the shepherd separates the sheep from the goats. He will put the sheep on the right and the goats on his left. The king will say to those on the right, "Come, you who are blessed by my Father, take your inheritance, the kingdom prepared for you since the creation of the world." In other words, y'all getting in heaven. For I was hungry when you gave me something to eat, and I was thirsty and you gave me something to drink. I was a stranger and you invited me in. I needed clothes and you clothed me. I was sick and you looked after me. I was in prison and you came to visit me. And then the righteous will answer him, "Lord, when did we do these things? When did we see you hungry and feed you, or thirsty and give you something to drink? When did we see you a stranger and invite you in, or needing clothes and clothe you? When did we see you sick or in prison and go to visit you?" The king will reply, "Truly I tell you, whatever you did for one of the least of these brothers and sisters of mine, you did for me." Then he will say to those on his left, "Depart from me, you who are cursed, into the eternal fire prepared for the devil and his angels. For I was hungry and you gave me nothing to eat. I was thirsty and you gave me nothing to drink. I was a stranger and you did not invite me in. I needed clothes and you did not clothe me. I was sick and in prison and you did not look after me." They will also answer, "Lord, when did we see you hungry or thirsty or a stranger or needing clothes or sick or in prison and did not help you?" He will reply, "Truly I tell you, whatever you did not do for the least of these, you did not do for me." Then they will go away to eternal punishment, but the righteous to eternal life. Those are the words of your Jesus. Those are the sacred words of your religion, your belief. And what I'm hearing is that if you treat the lowest people like crap, if you refuse them food, refuse them health care, refuse them housing, refuse them help, guess what? You might be a goat. But if, like me, you want to give these people health care, you want to give them an opportunity to better themselves, you want to feed them, you want to help them, you want to take care of them, the lowest of the low. Sounds like being a sheep ain't such a bad thing in that situation. So from your own book, all you MAGAs and all you people that are sitting there going, oh, we need to get these illegals out of here, da-da-da-da-da. That is why we say you're not getting into heaven. Because Jesus Christ himself says it in your own damn book. Take that however you want. They're not my words. They're not my words. Those are the words in red. Those are the words in red. So, don't be mad at me for it.